Let's bring in Richard Heydarian. He's the author of a book on the Philippine leader called Rise of Duterte. He's also a political scientist in Manila. Richard, thank you for joining us. So just how important are these elections for Rodrigo Duterte?
Well, again, I mean, the Philippines political system is patterned after that of America. Therefore, midterm elections are, in a way, a referendum on Duterte's presidency. I mean, he ran in 2016 on a populist agenda, presenting himself as as a counter-establishment candidate. He made huge promises, including sweeping crime and drugs from the streets of the Philippines. So 3 years in, the question for Filipinos is whether they're going to reaffirm that style of governance or whether they think that he has not done enough or he has been just another business as usual politicians after big promises. So are we going to reject it or are we going to affirm it? And so far, it seems based on the surveys, this is going to be a resounding victory for President Duterte through his proxies and alter egos and allies in these elections. Of course, there are 18,000 elected offices up for grabs, but what really everyone is watching for is what's going to happen in the Senate race when 12 seats are up for grabs. Again, based on the latest survey, it's probable that Duterte's allies will get at least 8 out of 12 available seats, but it's also possible that they get 9 out of the 12 possible seats. The 3 others go to independents, and then the opposition might get only 1 or 0 out of the 12 available seats. That will be the most lopsided elections in Philippine history. And that may just give President Duterte not only the majority, but the super majority that he needs in order to push for constitutional change that will, of course, upend the Philippine political system for generations to come. And with just majority, he can actually reinstitute death penalty and bring down criminal liability age down to 9 years old. Things that were rejected by the previous Senate, which has been among the very few bastions of independence in the Philippines right now.
All right, so there really is a lot at stake here. As you mentioned, he took office 3 years ago, promising to shake up Filipino politics, and his war on drugs in particular has been very controversial. Let's take a closer look now.
In his inaugural address, Rodrigo Duterte vowed to wage war against drug dealers and users. A wave of extrajudicial killings followed, with thousands of executions in the years since. Duterte was blunt when he discussed the policy.
Hitler massacred 3 million.
Hitler massacred 3 million Jews. We have 3 million drug addicts. It would be a pleasure to slaughter them.
I'd be happy to slaughter them.
That brutal talk spurred international condemnation, but seemed to endear him to other rule-breaking populist politicians.
But we've had a great relationship. This has been very successful.
At one point, Duterte even serenaded U.S. President Donald Trump. But even as he embraced the U.S. president, Duterte announced a realignment towards China and Russia. Allergic to criticism, Duterte has denounced and even defunded human rights organizations who have slammed his policies. He's put journalists and press freedom groups on his enemies list. But despite the popular appeal of his law and order rhetoric, it's bread and butter issues that may be Duterte's greatest liability in these elections.
What is necessary is to really unite and struggle for higher wages, better working conditions, and to have an end, to put a stop to the contractualization scheme that is a prevalent practice in so many companies.
Still, Duterte's grip on power seems secure. And with a one-term limit in place on his presidency, he's widely seen as grooming his daughter Sarah to take the reins after the next presidential vote in 2022 to ensure his legacy.
So, Richard, we heard there, it seems like Rodrigo Duterte's grip on power is secure at this point. The polls have closed in these elections. How free and fair have they been?
Well, the good news is that there have not been major cases of widespread violence. I mean, including the fact that we have had potentially tens of thousands of people killed during Duterte's drug war. These are extrajudicial killings. But for some reason, there have been very few incidents of violence. At the same time, of course, authorities in the Philippines, the Commission on Election has raised concern over massive vote buying. So this is a big problem. And of course, some technical problems with the voting machines. And not to mention one major electoral watchdog, which has been around since 1983, also did not partner with the Commission on Election because of concerns over credibility of that partnership. So there are going to be some shadow of doubt about the results of this election, especially if the opposition gets no seats.
All right, journalist and author Richard Heydarian speaking to us. Thank you so much for your insights.
Pleasure.